Please, thank you very much. I think this is a great occasion and a great panel. We go to these events and we're always asking, where are the owners? Why aren't the owners here? The owners are right here, so we can finally ask them the questions that we're burning. I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Erik Poirier. I am a postdoctoral fellow at the University of British Columbia, and I am the Chair of Communications for buildingSMART Canada. On the panel, first to my right is Subhi Alsayed. Subhi's Innovation Manager at Tridel and Director of Projects at Tower Labs, a nonprofit founded by Tridel and Mars. To his right, we have Raphaël Cayer, who is a project manager for, in the construction engineering department at the Quebec City Jean Lesage International Airport. To his right, we have Kam Leong. Kam Leong is the project manager at Metrolinx and is currently the project lead in railway system integration for the $10 billion light rail transit program. Kam handles the infrastructure planning and design of the transit system. To his right, we have Scott Patterson. Scott is Director for Facilities Support Services and Redevelopment for the University Health Network. He does Planning and Capital Projects Director with experience in construction and electronic project management systems. And last but not least, John Hale. He's a Chief CAD BIM for the Department of National Defense. John is the current Chair of Operations Committee at buildingSMART Canada and sits on the steering committee for the Institute for BIM in Canada. So unfortunately, we had sixth panelist, Balaganam, who are from BOMA, who couldn't make it, who sends his regrets. So I guess we'll cover the topics of BIM for owners and our BIM, is BIM gaining traction with owners. A couple of things that were mentioned today I think are interesting from the point of view of buildingSMART, and I really would like to thank Jerry and the board for having buildingSMART here today, buildingSMART Canada here. A lot of the presentations spoke about Open BIM, IFC. I think that's encouraging. Also, is Canada on the map in terms of requiring BIM and mandating BIM? We're seeing provinces and municipalities starting to look at mandating BIM. The Société Québécoise des Infrastructures actually put out an RFP with BIM and integrated design process in the RFP as requirements. So we are moving towards that. Now, without further ado, I'd like to start by asking the first question, which is on everybody's lips. Are you, as owners, asking for BIM on your projects? If so, how are you asking for BIM? And if not, what is preventing you from asking for BIM-enabled project delivery? We'll start with Subhi.
So the answer is no, we are not requesting BIM in our projects. Why not? It's not a simple question. Just to give everybody a background about what we do, we build high-rise condos. Our buildings range from 14-story to 70-story high. And we're the developers, so we're basically manage the whole process of acquiring the land, all the planning process, etc. And we also have an in-house project management team. But all our value chain and supply chain is all external. It's all contracted out, so all the designers, the installers, the suppliers, obviously, it's all outside of our organizational sphere. So, and we've been working at trying to adopt BIM. So it's not like we just sitting there and look, watching others using it. We have a very strong relationship with George Brown College and their BIM lab. So we've been working with them closely. And we use them we use their teams from their students on smaller projects where we use BIM, we use the animation side of BIM as well. Again, there are many reasons why we haven't been successful yet in bringing BIM mainstream on our projects. The main one the main challenge that we faced was the readiness of the supply chain in our industry. So, we found that if we want to impose BIM on our projects, then we have to deal with designers, architects, engineers, contractors who are not ready. They don't have the skill set or the expertise. We found that if we have to do that also, there will be a significant investment in infrastructure in the terms of computing power and hardware that doesn't exist or not needed at this point with the current model. And I'm going to stop at 3, but the third one, and I think it's also a significant hidden reason, is the culture and the way business is done and the flow of the design and construction process. So the way the development or life cycle of the design and construction process works is that there's little investment in design at the front end. There's more of a architectural work done on the shape and configuration of the building, the layouts of the floors to sell the project. But then the actual work and the electrical, mechanical, and the heavy design work that requires coordination happens at the later stage. If you want to implement BIM, then all this work has to be done at the front end. So there's like a cost being shifted to the front, which have a risk factor, which also meaning that people have to change how they do things, which is always difficult. So, I mean, there are many other reasons, but those are, I think, the main 3 ones that we face when we're working on BIM.
So capabilities, technology, and the shift in practice, or
so yeah, the culture of and the flow of the process itself and how people do work.
Raphaël?
Yes, we do ask for BIM, and we will continue. And in the if so, how? We do ask different things depending on the project. Sometimes we can classify it in a big project or a smaller project. If it's a big project, we will ask for the old BIM process that we're still learning how to do it correctly and trying to be better every time. We will ask for a professional to be on site. We will ask to have a 3D model going all over the project. We will do analysis with it. We will have all the facility management data used from the model, and we will transfer it to our operation facilities guy. And that will be for the big project. We will have an old package of the BIM. But on the other side, we still have the smaller projects that are going in the terminal. And it's still a conflict between we want to have the 3D models that will be evolving for 5, 10, 15 years, and the fact that maybe the smallest business or enterprise and professional site are not ready for that, and they're not ready for 3D modeling straight on Revit. So the way we approach it is more like a moral thing, so we don't want to exclude anybody to be able to bid on our smaller project. So we will ask for a standard project. They will do it on their side with 2D CADs, or they will stay as they are used to do. But at the end, it will be mandatory to have a .rvt or IFC file, so we can put it in the 3D models. And that will make it sure for us that we can still work after 10 years and have the same model, something that is accurate over time. So that's the major part for us, being able to say, okay, this one will do a complete BIM process, and this one will be softer on it, because we want to be able to show the people where we want to go, and also to show them we're there to help you and to understand what is BIM. Let's try this one the normal way, but let's put something more that you're not used to do with a Revit program under it. So that's pretty much it for the way we do it.
Excellent, thank you. So where there are capabilities, large projects, you ask for it. Where there's maybe smaller projects and lack of capabilities, you'll ask to have sort of a gap or a bridging.
Yeah, because they're not there yet, I think. And we can see it, because if we ask for a big Revit process for a small project, maybe 2 people will be able to bid. And if we do that, we will kill some small companies. We don't want to do this, and it's not good for us either, because we won't have a lot of submission. So we just try to stay the normal way and show them where we're going and where we want to be in 2-3 years. So at that time, we'll be able to do a big process, even for the small projects.
Excellent, thank you. Kam, $10 billion project?
Yes and no, whether we are BIM or not, and I will explain that to you later on. At Metrolinx, we just started writing up specification for a BIM functional plan, and also an execution plan that we put together. But we haven't started anything yet. It's still at the stage of review of the plan. And I think it's important to not let IT run wild with it, like getting the software, but having it should be developed from the ground up with functional requirements, what you need to do a BIM project. And yes, we have a BIM project, and I call it a mini BIM project that is being done at the Union Station train shed. As you know, that the Union Station train shed is a historical piece that people would like to not tear it down and have it refurbished and put it the way it is. So I wasn't very much involved in the project, but I do have some knowledge of what it is. What they did, they told me that they got some 1920 drawings, and they recreated the rabbit model and of the train shed. And I think they did not do it that way. They might have do it with a LiDAR scan, and then refer back to the old drawings. I think the reason why they're doing this is that because the Union Station, as you know, does not only have GO Transit trains running on it, they also have CP, CN freight trains, Amtrak, and VIA. So all those envelope has to be designed to fit within those new train shed. So that's the purpose of they might be doing some modeling work on that. That's what it is. It's just finished, and I don't know how far that went, but and I know that I probably will know in a few more months exactly what they're trying to do with the BIM model. And as you know, we are very much in the design bid build for the longest time. So to introduce BIM into Metrolinx, I believe there must be a change management, because we are so used to the technical reviews and all that. With BIM, we need an integrated approach, which involves a lot of collaboration between the contractors, the consultants, and us. And we need to build a team up internally at Metrolinx. Right now, we don't have anybody. The only people that we rely on are the consultants.
Excellent, thank you. So a lot of organizational change, internal and intra-organizational also. Very interested. We'll come back to that question of legacy assets. I think is a huge one for large owners. And Scott, you'll be able to talk to that as well, John. Scott, do you guys BIM requirements and so forth?
So we have been starting to ask for BIM, and it's actually more out of necessity than we realized at first, because unfortunately, like a lot of hospitals, we don't have very good as-built condition documents. They've either been lost, discarded, they're nowhere near correct anymore. So what we found was by using BIM and either a combination of scans or whatever else, it's helping us have a central repository for everything to put it all in one place. And it's been an eye-opener for a lot of our team to say that how many drawings you used to have to open up to look at what information is in one single room, lighting, cable trays, HVAC, and everything else, to have it all in one central place. And we've been pleasantly surprised at the pricing coming down on the cost of getting the 3D scans done. It's actually been even some small, like little pump replacements we've asked for. Well, what would it cost to scan this mechanical room while you're at it? And we've been really pleasantly surprised at some of the competitiveness of coming through. So that's been great. But to answer it on the other way, some of the things that prevents us from doing it as more often is it's a really complicated question to answer, especially for an owner who isn't as like the audience here, lives and breathes BIM every day. And when we get peppered with questions about this detail, that software revision, this, it's really intimidating. So it makes it really easy to say, well, you know what, never mind, we'll go back to what we know. So as much as I believe in it and we're trying to do it, it's not always easy to ask for something we're not really cautious on. So that's something we'll talk about more later.
So perhaps the transition to BIM is exacerbating you needing more capabilities within owners to actually formulate the ask.
We've actually addressed that by actually sending one of our employees through a George Round program. So we actually have some in-house trained people now, which has helped a lot.
And last but not least, John.
Okay, well, thanks. I'm going to say yes and a big but. We've been asking for BIM indirectly and directly since about 2009. And just a little bit about D&D, for those who aren't aware, we're a fairly large organization and we're very fragmented. So one of the keys that I've noted over the last 7 years is really we have to establish a knowledge base and really be able to, it's consistent across the organization. So we have constant or consistent messaging of what BIM is. Too many people in our organization believe that BIM equals 3D modeling, and that's something we have to get over. There's a few gaps we got to fill. We developed a BIM strategy back in 2010, and it was really for, it was based on phased implementation, focuses on project delivery. We established BIM requirements for our statements of work and RFPs. We have crafted our own execution plan. We have our own model maturity matrix, templates, documentation submission standard, the whole 9 yards, but we still haven't hit that button yet to go, that's how we're going to do it on all projects, because we're so fragmented and because there's so many project managers right across the board doing different things. So it's a bit of a challenge in that regard. One of the key things that I've noted is that, I'm just going to change page to get the notes. Between 2010 and 2013, our BIM requirements really lacked clarity and definition. We were receiving amazingly excellent results unsolicited for projects. But we are getting really good design models, really good construction models, good stuff at handover. Often asked to pay for extra stuff at handover, which was to we put our project managers up our backs against the wall. But we lacked the ability to take those models to O&M. So we really thank you for the great model, delivered a great building. This model, I have no idea what we can do with it. So really our lesson learned was if we're going to ask for BIM or advanced BIM, we have to be ready to use it. And we really got to focus on the handover aspect and using it for O&M and lifecycle management. So that's really it in a nutshell on our implementation. Yes, we are, but that's kind of the but. We still aren't at the point where we're organized. So really the bottom line is D&D needs to prepare a little bit more to, for that barrage of data that's going to come from a BIM deliverable and get ready for it.
Excellent, thank you, John. So this is a good segue, because I guess one of the questions that we hear a lot from owners is, or from the industry, it's sort of the cycle where industry's waiting for owners to ask, and owners are waiting for industry to be able to deliver. And we heard that with Subhi. One of the questions is, in formulating that ask, how much should the owner be asking for BIM? Like how much should the owner be scoping BIM? And really setting forth clear and consistent requirements. And we'll start again with Subhi.
I mean, you gotta understand, like I speak for my industry at least, the timelines are very fast, very quick. There's a lot of relationship-based interaction there. So like the contractors and installers that we work with, they're pretty much the same, and they keep changing, from one project to another. But it's the pool of the suppliers and installers are the same. So you can't really push too hard because you're gonna lose them. There's too much work. They're gonna go somewhere else. So in this industry, it has to be very slow and gradual. We as a client, as a developer, we have to support, maybe introduce it gradually, and that's what we're doing. Very slowly bringing it into our projects, and we have to be careful that the experiments and the projects that we implement some level of BIM on to be successful, because you don't want this to backfire and become a bad experience and another excuse for not to use BIM. So we're trying to be careful with that regard.
Thank you. Raphaël, I'd be curious to understand, how do you guys formulate your requirements and your contract language around asking for BIM?
But as you just mentioned, I agree that we are here as support and helping the development of BIM in the industry. But maybe some owners are scared to go into BIM because it looks like it's a hard task and it's a lot to ask. But you must not ask every details of what you want, and you must not say that the way you want it to be done. The way to attack it, I think it's better to ask what you want at the end, what you need in between. Do you want to do analysis? Do you want to put it in your FM data at the end? And then when you ask your vision and where you want to, when you see it in 2, 10, and 15 years, then the process will build itself from the beginning, and you'll be able to do BIM because the people will know what you want. They will show you the process to achieve it, and that's the way I think the build will start, and we'll begin all together to understand better how it is. And we must not understand every small issues we have to do. We just need to know where we want to go, and that way it's going for itself.
So set a clear strategy, a clear vision.
Yeah,
try
and
to
then you'll be
change
good, and the professional will come with you, and you.
Well, I guess I'll ask this question to Kam, and sort of, as an organization, knowing what you're going to do with those models upon having them for asset management, how do you go about doing that? How would you envision that at Metrolinx?
Currently, what we are having is we are developing an enterprise asset management system. What that would do is not only tracking the asset, but also putting in a good maintenance program. So with that, if we have a BIM model, it would help us in doing the operations and maintenance with this enterprise asset system. And that asset management system is available to everybody at Metrolinx, and also somebody that is a contractor that's outside of it eventually. But to start off, we are going to have it within the Metrolinx, and that should be ready and running by 2018. So the enterprise asset management would help us to keep track of every asset that we have in the corridor.
And so that's making its way back into a standard or a guideline that you'll be providing your consultants with?
Yeah, those standards and guidelines will be developed as we go on, and especially with the BIM implementation, hopefully by then.
Awesome. Scott, same question. University healthcare, large hospitals, a lot of assets.
So the last time I was sat down in a room of designers and they asked me, okay, how much detail do you want in the model? And I was kind of not sure how to answer that. So I turned the question back around to the design team. What kind of model do you wish I had to give to you when you were starting this design process? What do you wish was in something that you could pick up and work with? And that helped us kind of go back and forth and collaborate. Oh, okay, this is, you don't need every single nut and bolt. You wish you had this, I wish you had this. And that kind of got us back and forth, more collaboratively back and forth. So we're still work to do, and we're still kind of feeling our way in the dark, I feel a bit, but I don't want it to be, and I think Raphaël said it best, you shouldn't be too specific. Leave some room for flexibility and use our industry partners to help us inform each other.
John, you mentioned that you had all these documents ready to go and you were just waiting on to push the button. So how did you guys go about developing those requirements and thinking about that asset lifecycle management?
Well, we've gone through a transformation at D&D and the CAF. And basically, we're transforming our whole real property holdings into one organization. So we've had to really take a really long view at, what are we doing as a centralized service? And key thing is having data. So that was really the first point is we looked at, okay, what data can we mine out from a modeling environment? And how do we integrate that with our enterprise business data? So we went down the path of developing a spatial environment similar to what Kam was describing, where we've put all our data into one open environment where we will consume BIM data. So that's that. We're using the Open BIM standard for that. We're based on IC for the buildings, and for linear assets, we're still formulating that. But we're linking all this data and integrating with our business data. So now we're at the point where business is open. We're now looking at how do we connect and support project delivery. How do we get that data from pre-design requirements gathering to project stage, and then kind of tailor those documents that we have to meet new processes that we want to have in place. One of the key things we're looking at is we don't want to be that involved with the design and construction process. We just want to make sure that our technical requirements are being met. So that's kind of the shift in focus that we're having. We want to be able to find tools to go get the data, or if it's an IPD project, we'll be involved with it, but any other type of project, we want to just get the data at the milestone stages, and then at handover, pull that data back in. So we're really looking at what's in that package. The construction model's nice, but there's something else that we need. We need some space management data. We need to validate our occupancy. We need other stuff. So that's kind of the way we're going about formulating that.
So there's a couple of things. I guess the next question is, having formulated these requirements, so you now know a lot better what you're asking for, and you can formulate these at the onset. Is this an added service? Should you be paying for this extra data, or is this actually part of the standard of care that should be now provided? It's a tough kind of question. We'll start with Subhi. Should you be paying more for BIM?
You know what? I like to look back at trends that happened in the past and see how market transforms itself. So, like, was there a time when an owner had to pay for AutoCAD drawings versus the hand, blueprints? I don't know. I think when we get to a point where BIM becomes part of the value proposition of the industry and the value chain, it becomes no issue or no question whether it's an added cost or just something that nice to have or included in the service offering. It should be part of the value proposition. I don't think it should be an extra cost, but that doesn't mean somebody's incurring extra costs and you're not paying for it. That's not what I mean. I mean, like, it should be built in the business models of the suppliers and the installers and the designers, that it wouldn't present itself as an extra cost to anybody in the project team.
Does YQB pay more for their models?
Yeah, but that's an hard question because right now we are at the top of a hill with the BIM, and we try to kick the ball and just make it go down the hill, and we need to do it right now because we pay hourly with the professional because the people were scared at front when we talked about BIM, and how do we bid for that, and it was hard for them. So right now we're the one taking a bit more risk as we would like to do it. So I think right now it's the good way to do it so we can make BIM advance. But in the future, let's say 5 years, maybe the people that will have learned how to do it, they will be the one that will be able to bid less on each job. So right now we pay because we know overall of the project we will gain money and more efficiency. But we hope that in 5 years, all the people will do BIM, and the people who won't be able to have the same price as the other because it's so much more efficient. So the people know that they will have more time to put in it, less money for the bidding, and then you start your project, and the best is winning it.
So more reward, perhaps, for more risk. So on your side, you're willing to pay time and materials for
Right now,
for the build-up.
but in
with
5
the
years.
expectation that in 5 years it goes down. Kam?
It's a very interesting question, but I've been thinking about it for some time now. I'm very used to the legacy process with the design, bid, build. With the design, bid, build, as everybody here knows, there's a lot more drawings generated. So you have that 25% of preliminary design, 25%, 50, 75, and 90%, and then 10%, and the issue for construction. And there's many drawings and many design changes throughout this process. But with BIM, it's a little different. With BIM, it's a collaborative model or integrated project delivery. With that, everybody is involved, including the contractors, right up to the construction. And hopefully by then, everything is resolved. And you don't generate any paperwork until the model is done, and then you start construction. So what I would like to do in the future is to look at the cost comparison, and I think it might be a cheaper solution using BIM. That's my thinking, personally.
Scott?
How do I follow that?
Same as what I said.
Yeah, exactly. So similar to some of the other comments before, I think that people should be compensated for the cost that they incur. I have a hard time when people come in with a fee and an extra fee and an additional service and everything like that. So I think it's really a backup to myself and my team to make sure that the playing field is as level as we can, saying that everybody's going to come in with the expectation that you're doing BIM modeling. If you're not able to do that, then okay, you're not disadvantaged because you just can't compete. So to be blunt with the question, should I pay more? No, it should be the cost of the work. Mm-hmm. So it's not really an extra, just like any other software license and hardware license, and you don't charge extra because the project manager has a cell phone. It's cost of doing business. So there's value to it and everything, so I'm happy to compensate for the value, but I just really get annoyed when it's broken out as an extra service. And I don't know if we can talk about this now, but the LOD standards is something I would just die and go away and stop asking me about LODs, because you never asked me that on AutoCAD. What LOD you want for these drawings. So that's when I really get annoyed with. It's like, well, this is your base BIM, but if you want the extra BIM or the BIM plus or the BIM special, here's what it is. Stop.
Same question?
Yeah. same question.
Wow. Well, I'd say no. It's cost neutral. I think BIM implemented on projects, we're asking for a building to be designed and constructed. I don't see why we paying more or less for that. I think what it forces us as an owner organization to do is look at our inventory. We want to be able to manage all our assets equally the same. So we need better information to be able to manage in a BIM environment. So it's going to put different opportunities out there, pre-design, have maybe a model to do a little bit more analysis on before we get to construction or the project. And also post-construction, there's opportunities to actually do that as-built capture, make sure we have the right model at handover. I think those are business opportunities that maybe would pay a little bit more for. But for design and construction, it's definitely a no. It should be the same.
Thanks. I guess moving on to the question of standardization, the question of LOD, if there's this clear expectation, how much would a public mandate government bodies at the national, federal, provincial, municipal levels, how much do you think that would come and play a part in your mandating of BIM and creating a standard, perhaps a national standard that could serve as a baseline against which all asks would be compared? And I'd be interested to hear from you, Subhi, as a private developer, would a public mandate, do you think, would have any influence or impact on how you would go about asking for BIM?
You know, this is a good question, especially these days. There's a lot of contemplated mandates coming with all the net zero requirements and low carbon or zero carbon emission buildings and so on. So I actually was at a meeting with the Ministry of Climate Change this morning. We're discussing these issues and what's the best approach to handle this. And it comes down to, like, do you want to have a prescriptive approach to achieving targets, or you want to put a performance approach or objective approach to achieving specific performance targets for buildings? And I think BIM also falls under that. Like, BIM is a tool, and a lot of people don't understand what BIM entails or what's in BIM. But the technology that's behind BIM is always evolving and it will always change, and you can't really prescribe it or download it or impose it on anybody. Let's just focus on the deliverable and the performance of the, in this case, buildings, and the performance of the building, and let the industry adopt to the tools and the standards that would help them achieve those targets. Like we use the LEED example for a LEED rating system that we voluntarily use LEED on all of our buildings. We found it helpful for us, gave us a framework to work within, and got us to the point where we're the only or the biggest LEED certified building developer in Ontario and Canada. But that was a choice that we made. It suited our business model. Not everybody is in that position. Some other developers now are using different rating systems that more suited to their products and so on. So if you impose one thing only, then by the time you get to the point as a public entity or as a government, by the time you actually enforce that requirement, the technology that you stipulated in your requirements would be dated already. It would be out of date and need to be updated. So I think there should be, like, yes, there's always, having a regulatory mandate does help and stimulate the market into, gravitating towards that solution, but it shouldn't be too prescriptive.
Mm-hmm. So more of a performance-based, basically the performance of the building, also the performance of the deliverables. We know, widespread, you speak to owners, they get their as-built 2 years after they can't manage their buildings with obsolete information. So maybe perhaps a performance-based spec for your deliverables as much as your building. Raphaël, I'd be curious to see how do you guys validate what you get and against what do you compare or do you commission your information?
In fact, there's multiple tools to do that, and we, like a normal project, we just ask what we wanted at first, and after that there's a tool that let us compare what is in the design and what is we asked for at the beginning, and we can also adapt rapidly because it's a 3D model that is evolving. And that's not the hard part to confirm what we have, because you can always kind of compare with an easy tool to make it, and you sit and you take a look at your data. But I'd like to say a word about what you just asked. If the public join the BIM, I think it can just be great, because right now we are small parties that are trying to do BIM, trying to start. There's buildingSMART that help us to understand more and can BIM, and we can share about it in a community. But if public starts doing it, it will be like if maybe 25, 50 enterprises just join at once because of the multiple projects they do. And with that, we will be able to evolve from one project to another by sharing what we learn on each project. And I think that's the big part of BIM too, because there's not much of a community around construction if we don't talk about BIM. So right now we can see ourselves as a factory, and we can learn day after day, project after project, what we weren't able to do at first, because we wouldn't share, we wouldn't show what are the best practices. And with BIM, if public join it, if private enterprise join it, we will just share everything, and BIM will explode, and we will learn from one to another, and it will be perfect.
Optimist, I like it.
Yeah, we have to.
Kam, what would the influence of a public, sort of national or provincial mandate, what role would that play perhaps in for your organization?
Well, I can start off with a story with my previous job. I think the BIM mandate has to start from the top and cascade it down. When I was working for GM, that was my previous job as a software designer. Back in 2004, we started using a lot of the modeling, and also implemented a process flow platform called Teamcenter. I'm not sure anybody here is familiar with Teamcenter. It's very similar to a process simulation workflow. So in 2008, we were told not to build the prototype anymore on the 2010 Chevy Equinox and the GMC Terrain. So with that, we got rid of the prototype, and we actually did the whole design using that simulation. And guess what? We saved GM that year saved $5 or $6 million on the Chevy Equinox and GMC Terrain. So going back, I think the mandate has to come from the top, as I say. So the provincial government, I think, should do the same in mandating everybody using BIM, and have a proper governance that would tell people how to do it. And guess what? I think in the UK they do have a mandate to have everybody using BIM in the private industry, and it's working quite well. Actually, I read the article.
Scott?
So a little bit different approach. While I believe in the fact that we should all be encouraging BIM, but I would focus more on the open BIM standards, that type of thing. I wouldn't go too heavy into the weeds. I mean, it doesn't always work out so well when a big, slow-moving government gets into moving and mandating something as quick-moving as technology. We'd all be mandated on BlackBerry 6 or something like that. So that's just a hesitation I have, but if we get too prescriptive of it. But I do agree that should be promoting it. We should be encouraging each other to share information and best practices, and if it's around something like an open standard, open models, then that's okay. But if we get down to this is the Kobe standard that we're going to use, and it's going to stick like that for 20 years, that's maybe not so comfortable.
John, can you speak to D&D's view on that?
Sure. I think the mandate wouldn't really affect us all that much, but my own personal opinion is that we don't need one mandate, because there's not one agency in Canada that would set such a thou shalt mandate. I think the mandate is really, it's kind of a touchy word to use. I think we need several different agencies at all levels of government to actually start, understanding the value of BIM and getting that out there and putting it into their swim lane, and make sure it's something that it's required. I know open BIM is really important to us. I'm hoping some of our federal counterparts will do the same soon, but I wouldn't say that would be a mandate. So I think looking at the municipal level, I think it's really important that municipalities start looking for, using, putting a mandate out there for, for design review and consent. We should be having that mandated, like modeling should be part of that. That would help drive change more than, just one common overarching mandate.
Well, I guess it's a question of setting a strategy, and the mandate is there to support achieving that strategy. It's not mandating BIM to mandate BIM. It's the end goal is a better performing industry, I think. And the UK really did that well, if we want to come back to the example of the UK. The thing with the mandate also is that it seems to also support funding mechanisms for training. And so you have a vehicle through which you can start pumping money to train the industry and get them up to par. This brings on to the next question about whose role is it to educate the owner? We talked about, asking for BIM and so forth. Who should be taking on the role of educator? We hear a lot from industry of architects and contractors who impart knowledge around, bringing owners to BIM and so forth. Maybe how did you guys get onto BIM and how did you hear about it? And do you think the industry has a bigger role to play in educating owners how to ask for it?
That's a good question. I don't think there should be like one source of educating the owner or otherwise. I think these days knowledge is everywhere around us. We're exposed to technology everywhere we go. I think it just should be tackled from multiple levels. Like, George Brown College, is doing a great job in graduating now maybe the third, fourth generation of BIM educated designers. That we actually noticed that difference, because now the same supply chain that we were talking to 5 years ago about BIM, and they didn't have anybody in-house who were trained to do it. Now with some of the George Brown College graduates who were trained on BIM started working for them. And now we see Revit drawings coming to us as opposed to just only 2D CAD drawings. I think organizations have to look at their own staff as well as part of the investment and the training of their staff. Schools, training workshops, Autodesk, maybe they should have some courses. I don't think there's just one answer or one entity that should, it should be everyone's mandate and task to do it. Everyone can play a small role, and the aggregate result would be that everyone is educated on BIM.
Raphaël?
Either if you're an owner or architect or any professional that works with BIM, I think it's your job to know how it works and to educate yourself about it and how you do it. You start with consulting, you go with George Brown exactly, or some other schools that helps, and you get formation. But I don't think nobody has the task to, I will try to educate those people about BIM. If you want to be in BIM, you got to try to always be forward and understand what is happening. So you need to do this yourself by coming to some events like that, or talking with people, having lessons. There's multiple ways to do it, but you need to find your own way and your best way. Even if it's not BIM, I think it's on everything in life if you want to continue to perform in what you're doing. So it's the same for BIM, and we do it yourself.
Kam, how is Metrolinx educating itself?
When the BIM task was discussed among ourselves, I believe there's nobody that understands what BIM is. So what I did was I developed a survey and sent it out to a lot of the companies that I think that uses BIM. And with that survey, I developed a benchmark and tried to understand what the industry is doing. And from there, I pick it up and slowly develop the standards that I have today. And also what I think is important is that of certification. Somebody like Ken BIM should provide that certification to people that...
They do.
There is.
Right after.
Yeah, okay.
That's a good.
But
So-
there's a difference between education and certification.
No,
Because
with the certification, it proves that, you know.
you've educated yourself and
Yeah,
you
but
know what you're
minimum,
saying
right,
about, but
competency.
maybe it's not Kam BIM that showed you how to.
Yeah,
So-
it should be somebody that's showing you
Yeah.
how to do it. Okay, that's all I got.
Thanks. Scott?
So from our experience, the group that actually has educated us most, I gotta say, is our mechanical electrical contractors. Have been the ones that have really shown us the value and how to do it and how to get it. not trying to criticize anybody, but they're way ahead of the design teams. And really deep in. So they were the ones that really have opened our eyes, and the general contractors as well. But it's generally come up from the construction side of the industry rather than the design side. I'm not saying the designers aren't talented as well, but those are the ones that have really pushed it forward to what it can be done.
John, how's D&D going about educating its staff and looking at BIM?
I don't get the same question.
Yeah.
Okay. It threw me a loop there. We're going about a broad blasting communication effort around we're transforming, so it's part of our transformation initiative to get a better understanding across our whole department. All players, they do have a role in BIM, so it's a broad-based communication that we're going about. But in terms of D&D understanding BIM itself, we're doing our best to get out to events like this, coordinate and network with other stakeholders. And I really do see, just back to the question you had before about the mandate thing, I'm not so, I don't think we really need to mandate as much as we need owners to be change agents. We need owners to really work with other owners to really set that bar, be able to put the requirements out there that really helps drive that change. And also at the same time, if there's significant improvements, then to be able to reinvest that. So I think that's us just joining discussions like this. Having forums like, if it can BIM with an owners group, buildingSMART has an owners group, being able to have these really good dialogues and be able to start communicating more broadly with that.
Excellent. I have 3 minutes left. I have another question here, but I'd like to open it up to the floor. We have an opportunity. We have very knowledgeable owners. Alan, please.
First item, I think we owe the owners an apology because, quite frankly, the AEC community as a whole has confused the issue at a number of levels around BIM. I think that what we have done is, and as a number of people who've said they're already feeling BIM fatigue, we're struggling each and every day. I think the problem that we're facing is we've suddenly taken a tool that is the equivalent of a nail gun and using it to drive in nails. And quite frankly, what we're doing is struggling. And I think to the owner's point, it's not about so much using BIM. It's about deciding whether at a procurement level, you're either going to do model-based delivery or you're going to do document-based delivery. And if you're going to do document-based delivery, then BIM-enabled technologies can simply be a tool in that toolbox to help with that. But the problem is if we continue to drive towards model-based delivery, it's two different complete mindsets, and it requires the latter model-based delivery to actually drive collaboration. So to the owners, there's one area where you can actually encourage and say and mandate as owners high-performance teams at a collaborative level. But I'd like to, as much as we've heard about the UK and what's going on there, and as I've often mentioned, countries had a history of colonialization, and they'll continue to find ways to keep colonializing the world. The latter part of the BIM mandate there about exportable is what we should be concerned of. But given that the country has had 8 years of austerity, I would think 20% reduction in the cost of your construction should be one of those outcomes of austerity. And I wonder how much of the reduction that they've faced is not as a result of that. But it's interesting what Mark Bew says, and I'm going to quote what he actually says when it comes to the BIM mandate. We need urgently to find much better methods of growing capacity to deliver and provide good leadership, but this is not exclusive to BIM. So that's the challenge I think owners face, is we need to find the better methods with the capacity that we're going to face, and we should not get hung up on BIM. But I do thank you for your comments. I do appreciate it.
Any response to that, or you have 47 seconds?
Well, thank you. Apology accepted. But I like what you said about the model delivery versus document delivery. I think that's basically what I was talking about with the objective and performance-based, because this way you open the door for the next generation of BIM and the next generation of BIM to be adopted. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to really thank the panel. I think it was a really enlightening discussion. I'm really happy that we had this opportunity. It's one of the first. John? Oh, there's another question. Okay, sorry.
Hi, my name is Velo Everett. I run an engineering firm, and there was a point made about consultants being a little behind in BIM. I'd maybe make an exception to that. We produce fabrication drawings and 5D BIM models and do computational fluid dynamics. So I'd like to say I'm happy to give you my card afterwards if you need a new consulting team. But I think there's a lot here that can do that. One of the things that we've tried to do as a firm, and we're new to the BIM team here, but not new to BIM at all, is to look at the process that we've had. We're all familiar with stipulated price contracts, and someone was talking about design bid build there I think it was Kam that was talking about how he's used to those projects and lots of drawings. We're all familiar with design build options, P3s. We're a member of a number of P3 teams, and then there's also the IPD and lean construction alternatives. One of the things that we're curious about is whether owners are open to a completely new construction model. We have all this fantastic technology that we've looked at, tremendous bills of materials. We looked at an Intergraph presentation, which is very akin to the process where we can take the BIM model, create estimates, takeoffs, et cetera, and what that enables owners or even engineers or other parties to do is now to actually procure directly from the model, whereas before, when we didn't have accurate models, we had to let general contractors and subcontractors take the risk of ordering materials and things like that. But if that's now transparent, then we have the ability to actually order directly from the BIM model and expose pricing, get out of the wars of change notice pricing, delays, scheduling. We can be much more accurate in predicting time and so on. But is that something that any of you have potentially considered? Is a model, we use something called EPC, or Engineering Procurement Construction, which I think National Defense will be familiar with from a process point of view. And it's a process that large firms like SNC-Lavalin and Hatch and AMEC and Fluor and Bechtel use to build complex things like generating stations and nuclear plants and so on. And they're the consultants, and the contractors may take exception to this. The engineers move on to actually assist the client in procuring lots of specialty components, could be in the commercial world, a curtain wall and so on, and then stay on to manage the project, which is a different approach from IPD. And I'm just wondering whether any of the owners have maybe considered this. I suspect that maybe the National Defense is using that process already.
I can't speak to it directly, but yeah, we have used similar methods. One of our constraints is our procurement process in general in the federal government. There's all kinds of checkpoints and rules we have to follow. So getting new methods en masse, to make a shift to doing this across the board are fairly substantial. But we're very open to exploring those types of ideas.
So we haven't exactly done that model you just described. However, at University Health Network, we are just starting up our third IPD type of project. And yes, my colleagues' comments, it was always thought that no, in a hospital you can't do anything but fixed price. You can't do anything but stip sum. And that we found ways to stay within the procurement guidelines and still achieve a more collaborative approach, utilizing BIM, utilizing the open book approach, and it really, really do prefer it.
Great. I think that. Oh.
Yeah, we haven't used it, but I mean, you touched on a really good point, which is, I don't want anyone to think that, if you have a flawed process to begin with, and the way you conduct your business and run your projects are not really the most efficient way, by adopting BIM, that automatically the process can become more efficient. Or so it's like something like an IPD. I think it's very valuable because that helps you organize or make your process more efficient, regardless whether you're using BIM or something else. But once you have that infrastructure and that framework in place that's already efficient, inherently efficient, then bringing in something like BIM would bring even more added value.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. On that note, I will end it. Thank you very much for your interventions, and I think we'll be able to talk after. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, sir.